Hello and welcome to Calibre Conversations, which is our online book festival where we chat to a range of authors in the hope of introducing you to books to add to your reading list and ignite your reading fire. My name is Emma and I'm delighted to be speaking to award-winning children's author Onjali Q. Raúf about her fantastically enjoyable books, discussing difficult experiences that children might face and combining it with adventure, humour and showing us the power of friendship and kindness. So first of all, hello and welcome to you, Onjali.
Hello, Emma. Hi, it's such a joy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, thank you. Well, first of all, just congratulations on having your 11th book published recently, which I will come back to later. But can we go right back to the beginning of your journey, first of all, into being a published author, which started with the award-winning The Boy at the Back of the Class? I just wondered, could you tell us a little bit about that, the idea where that story came from at all?
Yeah, sure. So I began works in the refugee camps in northern France about 2 years before the book was actually written. I had no plans to write it. When I actually kind of secured my agent, I was working on this like trilogy around chocolate, the chocolate trade, and just an adventure around chocolate because I love chocolate and I love researching chocolate. But I started working in the refugee camps while she was trying to sell those books to publishers, and of course, during those 2 years, I met like so many children, so many babies, mothers, fathers, families just really struggling. They continue to struggle today. But I had no plans to write the book. And I think meeting a little baby called Rayan, who the book is dedicated to, really changed my life because I met him for 20 minutes. I got to meet him for 20 minutes. He was a newborn baby, just 3 days old. And every few days in the camps in northern France, sadly, there is what is called a clearance. So the police move in and they basically clear out the sites where refugees are sleeping. When I say clear, I mean they come in with weapons and batons and tractors and basically demolish everything they see in sight. And that means that the refugees flee for their lives. So this happened on the day I met this little baby. I was waving goodbye, and the police, we suddenly heard the sound of sirens. Um, Everyone started fleeing, including the volunteers, of course. And we never know where the refugees end up. We don't know where people run to. We can't track them. So we lose touch very quickly. And that happened with that baby and his mother, Zainab. And at that point, it was kind of like a really like shock to the system because it was, where's this baby going to go? Where's he going to end up? Where's his mother going to take him? Are they going to be okay? And those questions kind of rolled along for about 6 months. And the reason really why the boy at the back of the class came to be is because I ended up in hospital 6 months later, and all I could think about was this baby boy and what was going to happen to him. And I started imagining his story, like if he did end up in a safe country finally, what would happen to him if he walked into a school for the first time in his life after spending a lifetime in refugee camps? Who was going to meet him? Was he going to be met by enemies or friends? Was he going to be understood in any way? And I think it was day 3 of that hospital stay that the title, The Boy at the Back of the Class, only jumped into my head. And after I was well enough to kind of leave hospital and start writing it, it literally just came out of me. I don't even know where the story came out of me, but it was really an ideal imagining of what this little baby in that refugee camp might go on to feel, who they might meet, where they might end up. So it's kind of an imagining of Rayan's story, but just kind of coated in this story about a little boy called Ahmed instead, who walks in to a classroom and meets the most gorgeous human being. So yeah, that was really the seed of that book. It was unexpected. As I said, I didn't plan to write it, and yeah, but I think the reason for why it was written, I think, is part of the reason why the book has kind of been taken to so many hearts, and I'm really grateful for it coming out and being what it is.
I think that's the thing. I think you touched a nerve, and I think everyone did exactly that, took it to their heart, and that's why it's so, it's been so massively popular and indeed award winning, I have to say. And that's actually what you've just said there leads me nicely on to the next question, actually, because your stories obviously feature characters experiencing difficult issues, and that shines a light on what it might be like for people living with and in those situations. So, as an author, how important is it to you to give voices to those who might not always be heard?
I mean, it's an interesting question because I think most authors are doing that. Children's authors kind of always hone in on the orphan child or the child with, the kind of the bullied child or the one that's left in the corner. And I kind of think it harks back to our own childhoods in some way. We're also probably carrying around some trauma. But I think it's always been a quest for children's literature to hone in on the thing that's underestimated, the person who's, the person that everybody kind of doesn't think much of and then comes out to do something rather remarkable. But I think it's so important that we continue to do that. And it is a kind of goal with each story to make sure that I have a voice which needs to be kind of real in its telling. I'm not kind of disguising things as dragons and magic, and as wonderful as that all of that is, I do want to hit on issues that I know children are dealing with every single day, whether they're young carers or whether they're refugee children, whether they're someone surviving domestic violence at home. I want to hone in on it in a real way and make the adventures as real as possible, so that anybody reading it who is going through it doesn't feel like they're alone. They know they're not alone. And that's why at the back of every single book, I try and include helplines and things, because I know for a fact that, we have a generation of children who are the most informed than we have ever had before. These children know and see so much more than we did, I'm sure, Emma, when we were in school. And that is
Absolutely.
so heartbreaking in so many ways, because they're dealing with so much anxiety. They're seeing things in the world that shouldn't be happening and they shouldn't have to be seeing. So they're carrying that around with them. So I think in creating characters that are really honing in on the issues in a real way, it helps me, I suppose, reassure children that there is something they can do and that there are other people like them that they can team up with perhaps and go on to help. And for those who aren't going through it, that they have a role to play, that they have a voice that they can also add to that plight. So yeah, there's lots of things there. But I think most children's authors are always doing that anyway, so in their own beautiful ways as well.
That I mean, that's one of the things when as I was reading through your books is I got to the letter with the golden stamp and read the end of it and I thought, do you know, I'm not sure I've read a book about a young carer before, and that was sort of that made me think. And then it's sort of then if you kind of sets you off on a train of thought about what your world is like now and what would happen if you were in that situation. So that's what I absolutely love about your stories. Actually, coming back to the letter with the golden stamp, there's evidently a huge amount of research that you do in writing, and that's clear in the letter with the golden stamp, where we actually meet Audrey, who's as I've said, is a young carer for her mum and is an avid stamp collector, which I loved. And she's aided in that activity by her friendly local postman Mo, who reminded me a lot about my postman as well. So I was like, this is why I was loving this book. Did you enjoy doing the research for your book? So is it something that you actually like to do and get really involved with?
That for me is like the most fun part of the book writing process. The other part is crying and eating chocolate. So it's like the getting to go out to museums and interview people or have a chat with my postman, Abby, or go to the Philatelic Society and see what they've got in their dorms, like kind of rooms, and meet stamp collectors online and see what they're collecting. And I love all of it. That is the most fun part. I can literally sit there. I don't know what you were like at school, Emma, but I was that kind of stationery laid out on my table perfectly, different pens for every little note section, rulers, little index cards kind of stamped everywhere and put up everywhere. Like I
Oh
love that
yeah.
part of creating those research books, if you like. It was always my most favorite part of homework as well. So I love that part. The hard part is getting it into a story that makes sense. But that's always the most the most enjoyable, most exciting part when you're kind of researching and wanting to feel your way to a story. It's glorious. I love it.
So on that note then, can you give us a fun fact about stamps or the post office that you learned along the way?
Fun facts about stamps. Oh gosh, you've stumped me there. There's so many. I think one of the kind of hidden treasures that I didn't know still existed was the mail rail. For me, that was the biggest thing. I was like, wait a minute, there's an underground. I mean, I've lived in London since I was, what, 3 years old, and I didn't know about mail rail. I didn't know about that. There was a special little train that used to carry 6 million letters a day from one end of London to the other, and that hid the British Museum artifacts during World War II and saved the Rosetta Stone in those tunnels. Like it was just incredible. So when I went to the Postal Museum to go see it, and they let you ride it now because of course it's been shut down, sadly. You get to ride it and like feel like a letter being taken on train to somewhere. It's just absolutely incredible. That blew my mind because I'm such a geek in so many ways. I love trains as well, so I was like, what, to combine stamps and letters with an actual little mini train that was kind of running under the streets of London and that nobody really knew about was really mind blowing. So yeah, and also the letter, in the olden days, when trains were responsible for taking letters across the country, there was the catcher bags. So the leather catch, they would throw it. Literally, the train, the postal worker on the train would literally hang out of the moving train and hook a leather satchel with letters to a hook whilst the train is moving. Like, I was just like, how are they not like Olympian, kind of award-winning athletes? This is incredible. So just learning about the postal system as well, that the ways that letters were kind of transported around the country, and the feats to which with postal workers would go to ensure that those letters were delivered. And I also didn't know that human beings did try to post themselves. So that's why there's a feature of that in the book. Like, I was like, people actually tried to post themselves in England. They thought there was one really funny story. I think it's on the Postal Museum website now, but it was someone who wanted to avoid paying for, I think it was some kind of tax, so they posted themselves to a different address in the hopes that they wouldn't be caught by the HMRC, basically. And yeah, that's why there's a byline in the postal laws that human beings cannot post themselves.
It's
So it's
amazing.
kind of like it was just amazing. And people would post all kinds of animals and all kinds. So then now you can't post anything live. That's an actual law of the postal, kind of the rules. So it's all because of people doing really funny, weird things. And yeah, it's all there. It's wonderful.
And now I can see where some of the inspirations for some of the situations in that book have come from. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I would just say, if you haven't had the enjoyment of discovering Onjali's books yet, at the end of the book, she's got some fantastic fun facts and information, and also obviously the helplines for the issues as well that are discussed. And it is, when you think the story's over, there's just more, because those fun facts and the information that you've got. I learned so much. I just couldn't believe it. So what you've just said there, it was fantastic. So they are books that just keep giving. So yeah, I'm very jealous for those that you've not actually found them yet. So just coming on then to your latest book, which is called The Game I Will Never Forget, and this is where we meet Zach, who he's got three big things immediately that he has to overcome. So he's about to become a big brother. His grandmother's coming to stay for at least 6 months, and he has to give up his bedroom to her and sleep in the attic, which he calls his dungeon. But that's only the beginning of the story. So can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind this one as well?
I didn't have to go far from the inspiration. Zach is based on my brother called Zach. There you go. Very limited creativity going on there. But it is literally based on my little brother, because when I was about 8 or 9, my mother fell very ill, and my grandparents already lived in Bangladesh. So I hadn't seen them. I mean, as you know, if you're a child of a family that's kind of scattered around the world, we're not lucky enough to see our grandparents every day, every year. So I hadn't seen them since I was about 3. And then we suddenly got told, my brother and I, that, oh, your grandparents come to stay to look after your mum. And you're gonna have to share your bedrooms with them. And it was just like, it was kind of the equivalent of two strangers rocking up to your house and coming in and living, because I didn't really get to know them very well. But that was such an amazing year. They stayed for a whole year to look after my mum, and it was just the initial kind of frustration and like disbelief that you're having to like change your life for this person who's walking into your life, who you don't really know very well, turning into like just complete adoration, and this chance to know someone really deeply who has been the kind of starter of your family in ways that you can't imagine, the kind of rock of your family. So yeah, the Nani character in the book, the grandma in the book, is very much based on my real life Nani, who moved in was with us for a year. And also my brother is hilarious, so he did try and kind of come up with scenarios where he could kind of push the grandparents back into like to sleep in this living room instead of our bedroom or whatever. So it is based on him a lot, and based on my Nani, Shirley, a lot as well. But it is all about that relationship of grandparents and grandchildren, and it's such a special, beautiful thread of your life. It doesn't matter how near or far you are, there's a pull there. So I really want to honor that. And my brother was a chess champion at primary school. I could never beat him. I've still never beaten him. So that's why I've made chess such a kind of really at the heart of the tale. The Nani in the book is a chess champion. So yeah, those are all kind of the elements and ingredients of the book that went in for my real life.
That was going to be one of my questions actually, was whether you actually had to learn to play chess or you already played chess already. So that was, so you obviously, you were a bit of a master on it then already.
I mean, I play chess. Whether I play it well is another question. I love it. I enjoy it so much. I kind of formed my own chess kind of really geek unit at university. I was like, who wants to play chess on a Friday night? And they're like, no. But then I'd always find someone who was willing, someone who was willing to play with me in my dorms. But yeah, I love it. I love the game. I think it's such a because it's such an ancient game. It's an Indian Persian game that kind of spread across the world as the trade routes grew. So it's such an amazing, beautiful kind of mental kind of honing in on strategy and battle and what you're sacrificing and how you're moving and really thinking. It really kind of strips away the outside world when you're playing it. So I really love it. I still haven't beaten my brother though. I'm not gonna ever be a grandmaster at anything, but I really, yeah, I love it. I love it for what it is. It's just a beautiful game, I think.
Yeah, and again, I'll refer everyone to your notes in the back of this book, which again, I learned so much about chess. In fact, I had a whole new adoration for it after sort of reading all about the history of it. No, so I've always wanted to, and I wanted, my uncle used to play, and it's one of my life's regrets that I never got him to teach me. So I'm desperate because I love board games and I love, so, and it's just the one thing I've never learned, and that gave me a new sort of interest in it again. So I need to find someone to teach me. And
Go play. You can also, I mean, there's so many tools online now as well. You can watch really, really hilarious games as well as really serious ones. There's a million ways you can learn to play it. And the chess in schools and communities are going around trying to teach children chess in schools where they don't have chess clubs, etc. So I'm hoping that people will hone in on that and bring that to their areas as well. So yeah, go play it. It's so much fun.
No, that'd be fun. I did. Well, I did. I was keen because I think a few years back I went and got a book out of the library on it. That was what. So I was going to try and teach myself. So, but I never quite.
That is
I think it's
dedication.
not.
That's amazing. You must
It's
have a local chess club somewhere. You'll find it. Google it. You'll find it
yeah.
somewhere.
No, we. So I will do that because and I promise you from that because it's something I wanted to learn. But that's definitely got me back into it again. So yeah, no, that
Or
was
you can
fab.
even go to Chess Fest next year. They hold it every year, and there's people that teach you chess while you're there.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
in
fab.
London, in Trafalgar Square. There's whole tents dedicated to teaching people how to play chess.
Brilliant. I'm there. That's where I'll be. We did let people know that we were interviewing you actually, and we asked what they might like to ask you as a question. So this next question actually comes from Cyber, which is, what is your process for writing a book?
What is my process for writing a book? Okay, so I kind of have three stages. The first one is the idea stage, and that's really fun. That kind of mingles in with the research. So it's kind of, okay, I've had this spark of an idea. I think it might be good enough to write about. I'll go and research it a little bit. And that kind of stage is, I'm in cafes, I'm on buses, I'm on trains, I'm usually traveling, getting inspiration. So that's kind of the really fun part. That's a spark bit. The second bit is kind of formulating the story. And I would love to say that I'm a planner. I would love to say that I go and sit and I plan the chapters and I know which characters are going to come in and I know when that's going to happen. I don't know Jack when I'm sitting down, Emma. I have no idea what's going to happen. All I know is I've got an idea for a central character. I kind of know what issue I want to talk about. I'll start off at chapter one and just see where it goes. Oftentimes it will go in a completely wrong way, and which will lead to kind of some kind of breakdown and lots of chocolate eating and crying. And then I'll kind of put my computer away and go travel for a bit and come back to it. But that's the kind of that formulation of the story that's the most frustrating part for me. The kind of, okay, what's going in? How do I write this? Then comes the kind of between phases two and three, there's a block. There's always a block. I get blocked. It's not even blocked. I get bored. I think I get bored with my own stories. So like by chapter seven or eight, I'm like, oh no, this is like, oh no, is it going the right way? And also I've got a new idea now, so I want to go do that. So my editor, my poor editor's jobs is usually ringing me every week to say, come on, you can do this, get to chapter 10 and then like you'll break through. So that leads to the third kind of element, which is locking myself in a room and turning into Gollum and writing and crying until I reach the end. So those are my three stages. And it is literally just getting my way through and then being surprised at characters that pop up or a scenario that's popped into my head, and then that go in and then we'll test it out. And yeah, and then I think the kind of end stage is the editing stage, and that's the stage that makes you want to rip your hair out. But yeah, you have to
I've
get
heard
through it.
that. Yeah, that's a bit
Which
sort of
is
like
why I
going back
wear
over
this for.
homework, isn't it?
There's no hair left. But you have to go through it, and it's 13, 14 edits sometimes. So you kind of, by the time the book comes out, you're like, I'm done. I don't have to see the story ever again. But yeah, those are the three stages, my main three stages, followed by the editing stage.
And then that's where we as a reader benefit massively, isn't it? So you're doing all of that, and then we get to enjoy it.
Yeah. That is the thing that makes the hair regrow again. That's my hair tonic, learning that people are reading.
So you need lots more people to read your books then, so that it can grow back quicker.
Yes, please.
So actually, one of the questions I was going to ask about that was whether you had a favourite snack while you're doing your writing process to keep your energy levels up. But I'm guessing that's chocolate. Is that?
Oh, always. I have I go through favourites, but it's usually just like a tiny little snippet of something. I have to have something sweet with my tea, and it is just tea and chocolate. I that's what I survive on when I'm writing, and which is the worst. This is the worst advice, kids. Don't listen to it. Have fruit. But it's literally, yeah, you need that something sweet. But I felt really reassured because I went to visit the Roald Dahl Museum, and they've got that massive ball of his Kit Kat foil that he used to collect after every single kind of writing session. I was like, okay, this is okay. I can be in that same hallway with him. But yeah, it is chocolate. And I do have a wonderful brother. I mean, Zach is wonderful as naughty as he was as a kid. So when I'm going through my Gollum phase, he'll always drop off food for me, just because he knows I'm not cooking.
Oh.
I'm not cooking or eating anything. So he'll drop off food for me and make sure I survive on anything beyond chocolate and tea.
I can't argue with tea and chocolate, I'm afraid. That's exactly what keeps my energy up. Yeah.
And it's also is it a fruit? Yeah, it's a fruit. So I count it.
It is. Now, obviously, in Calibre, we're all about audio, and your books are available in audio. So I just wondered if this is a process that you have any involvement in at all.
I do get to choose the voice actor. They can kind of give me samples, or I'll go to them with recommendations. And when I say them, I mean my publishers. So I'm always very keen that the voice actor has some kind of link to either the background or the location from which the voice is from. So, for example, with Audrey and Letter with the Golden Staff, I was like, I want someone Welsh. We need to have someone Welsh. I don't want someone pretending to be Welsh. I want them to be Welsh. Same with Leo from Line Above the Door, because he's a Singaporean child. I want someone who has that kind of experience, has that just that natural accent. I don't want to be putting it on. So I do have a say in it, which is wonderful. And I have done an audio book myself for Hope on the Horizon. They asked me to narrate it, which was really interesting actually, because you kind of start stumbling on like the smallest words, and you're just like, what is wrong with you? So it's such a hard job. I think it's so amazing that you have these amazing voice actors who can just kind of sit there and ream out hundreds of pages a day. They're just incredible. So yeah, I do have a say. I'm very lucky I get to say and get to choose who the final voice actor is going to be.
It's interesting for you as well to have seen both sides of the microphone, as it were, as well, because obviously and I wonder, do you ever think about that in your writing? So when you're actually writing the book as to how it's going to be heard, or do you just like, no, we'll get it on the page and then, we can adapt it?
Oh no, I'm talking out loud the whole way through usually, which is why I have to lock the room because everyone thinks I'm crazy. So it's kind of like, so even with Audrey, because she's Welsh, I overdosed on Gavin and Stacey. I can literally quote you anything from those series, because I was speaking. I wanted the Welsh accent to come out, and my nephews and nieces are Welsh because they live in Swansea. So I was literally listening to them. I was like, send me voice messages about what you're doing today, and they're 7 and 8, so they would send me voice messages. So I really do talk to myself out loud. I want it to read like the voice who's speaking. That's really important to me, and for me, I also kind of imagine it as a kind of a film in my head. So what's going to happen next? If I was watching this, what would be really fun to watch, and what would that voice say to me next? So yeah, kind of visualization and reading out loud to myself almost.
Fantastic. Now, one of the other things we're really passionate about at Calibre is reading for fun and all of the adventures it can actually take you on in life. So I just wondered if I could ask, where has reading taken you, and has it helped shape your chosen career or your interests or your charitable work at all?
Oh my God, I wouldn't be here. I would not be here if I didn't have access to books as a kid, if I didn't have a love of adventures and stories. And I will say that, Emma, we've talked about this before the recording began, that there's no one way of reading. There's so many different ways of reading. So, just give you an example. So, my brother and I had very different loves. So, I loved, like, the classic kind of, the novel books. I was reading Railway Children and Agatha Christie and all kinds of whatever by the age of 7 or 8. I loved it. I could never get enough of them. My brother hated them, couldn't stand them. He just thought he couldn't find a place where his imagination could grow through so many words. It just was so overwhelming. So for him, it was the comic book realm. And because I had someone like that in my life who brought in a new mode of reading, it introduced me to that mode of reading as well. So I love comic books as well because of him. I don't think I would have ever picked one up otherwise. But if I didn't read, if I didn't have access to the library, I wasn't in a rich household. We couldn't buy books whenever we wanted, especially not at the rate that I wanted them at. My mum couldn't afford 8, 9 books. We were living in a council flat. There's no room for them either. So it's kind of like the library was absolutely my happy place on earth. Like we have a beautiful town hall library. My mum would take us every single Friday, would max out our library cards, and that was the kind of adventure plane that I realized I wanted to be in and be a part of because I loved the stories I read. I love the authors that I fell in love with for life. I mean, you fall in love with authors for life. So it was always a dream to have like that kind of, oh, maybe I can write a story like that one day, and maybe I can also have a book one day. So I wouldn't be here. I definitely wouldn't be here if I didn't have access to books and libraries and that portal of adventure. And also my brother with his comic books because he introduced me to Tintin. And Tintin is such a big figure in my life. I've got Snowy right here. He's always by my side.
Oh, there is.
This character who went around the world with zero superpowers was fascinating to me, and Tintin, for all the faults that kind of time might have, it led me to Egypt, it led me to Saudi Arabia, it led me to China because that's where Tintin went, and that made me realize that I could be one of the characters, not just in the background, but maybe you could be in the front, be like Tintin as well. So it's like, so books are everything. I wouldn't be here without them. Stories are everything. I wouldn't be here without them, and they have informed pretty much every ambition I've ever held for myself.
As a librarian, that's just warmed my heart. So thank you for
Oh
that.
my gosh, and my librarian, Miss Dixon is everything. So I was very lucky. I got to do a kind of foreword to the Railway Children published by Oxford Press, I think it was, a couple of years ago. And they were like, "What do you want to write about?" And I said, "My librarian, Miss Dixon, gave me the Railway Children as a gift for my 10th birthday to keep." And I was like, "You giving me this book to keep?" She goes, "Yep, you don't have to return it. This is your gift." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." And in that book, that was my first ever kind of encounter of a political refugee. And I have no doubt that really changed the game for me in my subconscious in some way because I always realized I wanted to help people. And that book showed me a way of doing it without being going out to save the world, but you're saving a person as well. So yeah, Miss Dixon changed my life as well. So I hope you know that you'll have changed many children's lives as a librarian, Emma.
Oh, that's, we do it for the love of it and because we want to just promote reading as much as we can. And we know there's a book for everyone out there, wherever they are at any point. So if I even, made one person into a reader, that's good enough for me. But yeah, we do it for the love of it. So, with that in mind, actually, then, would you have any advice to children who might not yet have discovered reading, and as like a fun activity, and sort of try and start them off on their reading journey, and maybe even just sort of say, what was your first reading memory? Do you have a first reading memory?
I don't know if it's a first. I think it's the one that I can possibly. I have a really bad memory, by the way, so it's like the worst question to ask me. But I do have a memory of literally there were two books that I would read and read and read and read and read until the covers fell off. So one was The Tiger That Came to Tea. I loved Judith Kerr. Judith Kerr was everything. And the other one I loved was Peace at Last with the elephant. But it was really interesting taking home. I remember my mum saying to me, "Oh, it's an Indian tale." When I took home Peace at Last, I was really confused. I was like, "No, but it's in English," and she was like, "No, but that's an Indian elephant." And I was like, oh, really? Like, oh, yeah. So it kind of connected to my world more. But like, I do remember that. Those were kind of my earliest memories around loving a book that much. And then, of course, all the other kind of millions of books came in afterwards. But those were my earliest ones. But I would say to children who are feeling as if they're not enjoying reading, find your platform. It might not be a book. It might be a comic book. It might be a manga comic book. It might be a newspaper. Maybe you love reading facts and figures. Maybe you want the Guinness World of Records as your book to go to. Maybe you want to read about astronomy. Maybe you want to read about architecture. Maybe you want to listen to a book because that also counts. Like, it is storytelling. It's an oral form of storytelling, which is what we're all essentially doing. If you want someone, if you like to listen to stories, then maybe you want to ask a grown up in your world to sit and read with you, and read to you while you follow the book along. Like there's so many ways. And I always say this, like I have, children in my world who don't enjoy reading books, but they are prolific readers because of the, subtitles that they're reading, on YouTube or on, their favorite dramas on Netflix or whatever it is. So it's kind of, there is always a form of reading going on. You just have to find the one that you enjoy the most, and share it with the people you love and not be afraid to talk about it because everything's a jumping off point. I find it really interesting because even social media, it's all around stories and words. Like whether it's word limits or whether we're calling them, Instagram stories, it's still stories. People are interested in everybody's stories. So whatever form of reading you love, I think, find your platform. There is no one right way to read. There's no one right thing to read. Go find it and enjoy it and share it. And hopefully you'll find your people as well who love it as much as you do. And, from there on, hopefully you'll go into other forms of reading as well. So yeah, who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a format for everyone, and actually, some of my it's interesting because quite a lot of what you're saying about reading very much mirrors my life in terms of I've got an older brother, and actually he would only read comics as well, and I came through comics for him because he would just hand down all his, so the Beano and the Dandy, and then other sort of then what we call I suppose now graphic novels are going into those, but all of those whole comic format, and I love them, and that's and magazines and things, so we'd run to the shop at the end of the week. That was our treat. We could get one magazine, and sort of, so getting into the stories through that way, and it's all it's all brilliant. So whatever way your format is and how you want to get into reading is all
I had
good.
a friend at school that wouldn't read anything except encyclopedias. So she'd go to
Excellent.
like A on a certain thing, just work her way through the alphabet, and there's like,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow. So she'd read like maybe like four lines, but she'd learn a new fact, and that was everything for her. So there are just so many interesting ways to read in this world of ours. So yeah, just find it and enjoy it.
And that's the other thing about non-fiction, isn't it? So you can do that. You can dive into non-fiction, like, which is perfect. So there's definitely a book out there for everybody.
And it leads on
Um,
to stuff. It leads on to stuff. So, just to give an example, another friend of mine was really into World War II while we were doing GCSEs. They'd only read like facts around World War II, but then they learnt about these amazing women. They learnt about these amazing men. So what they would then go and do is find the books and the biographies to read about them. So it kind of like it's a jumping off pad. So yeah, don't limit yourself either.
and that is the beauty about all books. So even just me reading your books, there's a million things that I want to do, from reading the books. And that's the most important thing is if it triggers your imagination, and any sort of fact that comes into it, you immediately, for me, that's part of the joy. Then you go off and you learn more about it and you're just expanding your world massively. And that's one of the greatest things about it. So obviously now we know you love reading. So if you could go back in time to meet an author, who would it be, and what do you think you might ask them?
Oh, Emma, that is such a cruel question. Like, it's just a cruel question. Like, how do you pick? Do you have just one author you could pick?
No, I'm a librarian. I'd pick loads, so I'd be here for an hour.
I would be here for 10 years and we both need to get on with our lives. Like there is so many authors. I mean, is it like childhood? Is it like, formative years? Is it university years? I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, I would love to meet all the authors I ever read. Like I would love to meet everyone from Judith Kerr to Enid Blyton to Roald Dahl to, I don't know, Hergé who wrote the Tintin books to anybody, Jane Austen, Wilkin Collins, like anybody, Charles Dickens. I mean, everyone, because you want to learn like their stories. Maya Angelou. I mean, oh my God, so many. I mean, if you had someone once asked me like, if you had 10 guests at a dinner party, you would be. I was like, I would need about 50 of those dinner parties to get everyone that I want in the room. Like there's no way. So there isn't one. It's like children ask me all the time in schools, what's your favorite book? Or, out of even, just that's like asking me which star in the sky is the shiniest. Like there is just you just can't do it. And every author imprints on you in some way. Even if you don't like the story, they'll imprint on you in some way. So yeah, that I don't have an answer to that question.
That you can have that. That's no problem, because it's not a question I could answer either. So
Even
I'll
the
give it
authors
to
of
you.
today, like Frank Cottrell Boyce, makes me just joyful whenever I read his books. Sita Brahmachari makes me think really deeply about anything when I read her books. Nicola Davis, who's just become the laureate for Wales, like her poetry is incredible. I'd love to sit. I mean, I did get to sit down with Benjamin Zephaniah once, but I'd love to sit down with him again if he was, in this world. So it's just, I mean, everyone. There's so many beautiful, amazing authors, both alive and past. So there's just no way to pick.
That's fine. So actually, this might be another tough question for you then. So obviously, you meet lots and lots of fantastic young people about on your travels, asking you questions about your life and your books. So what's the best question that you might ever have been asked by a child, and what was your answer? Can be as
Oh,
out
do you know
there as
what? It's the
possible.
ones that are really thinking about what you've just said. So, like when I'm presenting on the books, I talk to them about the real life issues. So for example, if I'm talking about the boy at the back of a class, I'll talk about what refugees are facing right now, why it is we don't see what they're fleeing, why we don't understand why they get on dangerous dinghies and cross oceans, even though their lives might be at stake. And when I do talk about all of that stuff, the most beautiful questions tend to be, how do we help? And that will be from 5-year-olds up to 12-year-olds up to 16-year-olds, and even teachers will come forward and say, I didn't know about all of this. I need to help now. And that is the most stunning thing for me. I'm like, if you're coming forward and thinking, oh my God, I didn't know this, what do I do about it? That is incredible. That is like beyond my job done. So I think that is always the most beautiful question. And I think the most sweetest way of someone asked me that was I was reading, I have a picture book called The Girl at the Front of the Class, and that's also kind of a mirror of the boy. So it's a refugee girl that walks into a nursery class, and I was reading it to this, the cutest kids on the planet. They're all like 3 and 4 years old. I was like, oh God, how do I talk about refugees to them? But I was talking about Superman. I was talking about, Judith Kerr's book, Tiger Came to Tea, because that's a way of welcoming a stranger with no expectations. And this little 5-year-old came back up to me up the end of the session, and then just dug deep in his pockets and showed me a handful of rubbers, like, tiny little razors that he'd been collecting. Like they were half broken, the pink, blue, green, everything. So he collects these little rubbers in his pockets, and he just looked up at me and said, Miss, I'm gonna make lots and lots of friends of refugees. I'm gonna give them my rubber collection, and I'm gonna really, really help. And that was his way of, that was his interpretation of helping. And I just thought, oh my God, like that just, even brings tears to my eyes right now when I'm talking about it. But I'm just like, just the sweetest souls, and all digging for ways to help when they know what the crisis is, if you like. So yeah, that is the best, most sweetest, most wonderful question that I get in all the schools I go to.
But that's one of the most important things about your book, is that they do have that impact. So people sort of want to make a difference after they've read them, and we know, just as that little boy, we know that small actions can make a massive difference. So have you got any hints or tips to anyone that might want to start to help others in their sort of schools or communities from on reading one of your books?
Absolutely, there's so many ways. The biggest thing I think that people get tripped up on is feeling like, because the world's problems are at our doorstep, right? They're everywhere we look, but they're so big, they're so gigantic. How do you help, millions of people fleeing for their lives or fleeing war zones? It's kind of that, strip it back and see what you can do on your own kind of conditions, on your terms. So it's everything from finding out about a local charity to making a friend who might have just walked into your kind of classroom or community. It's having a mind open enough to ask questions. My biggest thing is, be brave enough to ask your questions. That will lead you on adventures that you cannot possibly imagine. Be brave enough to have the discussions. Go home and ask questions. Go, ask your teachers questions. Go to the librarian and ask questions. Find out about what it is that you're interested in and the questions that you're having. Go on your own journeys. And I also want children to know that they are incredibly powerful politically as well. So they are the future generations of voters. They're the future politicians. They're the future teachers, the future everythings. So I want them to recognize that their voice really matters, and each one is so unique, and they will come up with their own ideas as well. So I have so many children who go off and do their own amazing thing. I had one girl who wrote in saying that she and her friend had launched a break time hot chocolate club where they sold hot chocolate to the teachers at 20p a pop to raise money for a local charity, like a refugee charity. And another couple of boys, Ayana and Mikhail, who are known as the Lemonade Boys, they set up a lemonade stall, and now they have water trucks in Lebanon with their faces on it because they've raised hundreds of thousands of pounds. So it's just like they will go off and come up with ideas of their own, and it's our job, I think, as both as authors and creators as well as grown-ups, to give them the space to find their questions, to find the answers, and to go off and do the thing that they think will help the world. So yeah, it's so many things they can do, but I think it all begins with friendship and questions. Make the friend, don't be afraid to make a friend, and ask your questions, because that will lead you on your adventures.
And I'm also just going to make a mention here of your book, Hope on the Horizon, which is a children's handbook on empathy, kindness, and making a better world. And I'm currently listening to that. And I have to say, I have got loads and loads of inspiration from. So even as an adult, I've taken that, and I've got so much that I can now do. And it only has to be little things. It doesn't have to be huge. But that's so. Yeah, I would totally say that's a great way into it. So for anyone looking for inspiration, perhaps just have a read of Hope on the Horizon, because that's a good place to start as well. Now, just before I let you go, Onjali, can you give us a sneak preview of what you might be working on next, or if not, what projects you're involved in? Because I know it might be a bit secret what you're working on next.
Okay, if my editor was listening in, she'd be like, "Come on, then, what is it?" So the next kind of middle grade book is centered. I mean, can I say anything? Because I haven't really started it. I know what the story is in my head. It does have to do with conflict, and it does have to do with ways of people coming together to overcome what seems like pretty big things and finding similarities. Because I think we're living in a very, sadly, and I know our kids are being brought up in a world where things are being said that are untrue, or rumors become facts, and people are hurt as a result of that, all of those things. So misinformation, or kind of a fear that kind of is bred in ignorance. I want to kind of tackle that from my own kind of angle. So I can't really say much about it, but there's a girl at the heart of it who is pretty awesome. So she is going to be uniting a lot of people, hopefully, in the story. That's all I can say. I mean, we're still kind of working on a title. I'm meant to have the book in by January. Have I started? Of course I haven't. So it's kind of we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, it's going to be about unification over enforced differences.
Well, as someone who always left their homework to the last minute, but still managed to produce quite good essays, I'm all over that. So I think that's a great way of working, and it's testament to your other books anyway. That what
Cry
you
away to the deadline. That's the
pretty much with some chocolate.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, just before you go, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with you, and just ask you some either or questions, just a handful, where you've just got to pick your favourite. Just tells us a little bit more about you. So. First, either or is letter writing or email.
Oh, letter writing. Always.
And then electronic games or board games?
Board games.
This might be a bit harder. So samosas or coconut boros?
Ooh, coconut boros, just because of my nanny. She made the best ones.
Oh.
You've done your research. I love it.
And then lastly, Inspector Gadget or Danger Mouse?
How dare you! Oh my God. Who would I pick? Do you know what? I think I'm going to go for Danger Mouse, literally because I love Mole so much.
Fair enough.
But that was a cruel one. Do you have one out of those two?
I'd have to go Danger Mouse every time. I love them both, don't get me wrong, but I'd have to go Danger Mouse. Yeah, no, I did. When I wrote that, I thought, was that a bit mean? And I thought I'll ask it anyway. But yeah, no. I loved the Penfold alarm clock in the old Danger Mouse alarm clock. That was brilliant. So, and you'll have to read all the books to find out where that features. Thank you so much for joining us today, Onjali. I hope we've encouraged our listeners to embark on a reading adventure into discovering your books. And just to say, if you're a Calibre member, you can borrow Onjali's titles from our collection. So along with the ones already mentioned, we also have The Star Outside My Window, The Night Bus Hero, and The Lion Above the Door. You can also check out more information about Onjali and her books by visiting her website, which is at www.onjaliqrauf.org. Onjali's books have already set me off on my own reading journey, as I've now read 3 and listening to my 4th, and it won't stop till I've finished. I am absolutely completely hooked, and I was trying to think of what the best way to say was the effect that your books had on me. And then I discovered one of the brilliant children's quotes that you have in all the front of your books, which really summed it up brilliantly. So my last words to you will come from Jamila, age 7, who said, "Thank you for writing your stories. They make me feel like I can do anything one day." So that only leaves me to say a really big thank you to you for joining us today. And just thank you very much.
It's been an absolute joy, Emma. Thank you so very much. And thank you for everything you're doing as well with our kids of the world. Thank you.